I want to talk a bit about this idea of shaming,
Mhm.
and this idea that, if we're shaming men around their porn use, that's wrong. And I go back and forth on this because I don't think that shaming somebody is going to necessarily be a successful strategy to get them to stop doing it. But at the same time, I think that a lot of that shame isn't like an external shame. I think it's like an internal shame.
I'm gonna read you a message from the boys. So yeah, go for it. I'll just be scrolling, but feel free to kick this off, and I'll find this in 2 seconds. Which
Yeah,
was
and because I
beautifully.
think, when people talk about, in my experience over talking about this for the past 10 years, what I've gotten a lot from third wave feminists, from libertarians who have sort of a libertarian approach to prostitution and the sex industry and pornography, to leftists and progressives who use this sex work as work mantra. And if you're consenting and you're getting paid, then it's all above board. Is that there's this sort of religious shame that's wrong. And I'm not a religious person. I never have been a religious person. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't fit into this box. But nonetheless, what I know when I talk to men about pornography is that they are ashamed about their porn use. And I don't think it's coming from it's not coming from religion or external. And there has to be a reason that you feel bad about this, because porn is so normalized.
That's
Porn is
right.
completely mainstream. The message that boys and girls get, and young men and young women get over and over and over, is that porn is fine. It's a harmless fantasy. It's totally normal. It's
That's
akin to
right.
masturbation. So it's part and parcel with masturbation now. And so I don't think that there is a lot of shaming going
Mhm.
on around pornography, but
I
yet it's
think
there.
I don't think so as well. Yeah, I don't think so at all. And I think that is just again another smokescreen for people not have to reckon with what is actually going on here. What are these realities? Why have we normalized, as we've said, why is it more mainstream and yet more violent, more degrading, more racist? Like people don't want to grapple with that because that's hard to sit here and say, like, why am I watching this? Why is it more incestuous? Like, why is so much of it stuff that is just completely out of sync with our supposedly progressive, enlightened social justice values, that anywhere else it's not okay, but in the presence of an erection on a porn site, it's all good?
Yeah,
Like we
exactly.
can't reckon with that. My whole thing, and I was just scrolling to find this bit of feedback I got from a young man last week that sums this up so perfectly, right? So I just present what I've said today, but with even more research, more of the science to young men across Australia, right? And they've never heard this before. Now, my whole thinking is like I do this as a critique of porn culture, and society. I'm not critiquing any individual. I'm not even saying if you look at porn, you're bad. What I say to young men is if you've watched porn or been exposed to porn, you've been preyed on by $1 billion industry that's hijacking your hardwired interest in sex and sexuality, and probably from a very young age. And you haven't even developed the relational, emotional, mental capacities to either reject that or think critically through it. So you're not in trouble. You're not wrong or bad if you've been exposed or consuming it. Like it's an unfair fight. So there's the reality. And then, but it's to say, well, but now what? Like, but now what? I didn't go searching for it. I was shown it, but I'm still have some moral responsibility in all of this. What does that actually look like? And so I want to present the facts in a way that you can make an informed decision. And I like what Brené Brown says, where it's just like, if you don't ever feel shame, you're probably a sociopath, right? And so I'm
Right.
not trying to shame anyone, but if presenting this information makes you feel guilty or makes you feel a bit uncomfortable, like sit with that. But we live in a society that says you should never feel bad or feel uncomfortable. And so let me just push that back, project that back on you because you're the person that's introduced some information to me that doesn't sit well with me, that makes me feel X, Y, Z. This is what a young man said to me last week. He said, "Thanks again for the talk. You made a lot of people, myself included, uncomfortable, which I think was really necessary." And he goes on to ask about how he can change from here. And I love that. This is a 16-year-old boy who recognizes that discomfort is part of how we actually grow and learn. And I'm kind of shocked that we live in an age that kind of acknowledges that. We've learned that from our kind of philosophical stoic past. We have, you know, self-help gurus and other people that say, like, you're not going to get anywhere in life without discomfort. But it's like, you make me feel uncomfortable about my porn consumption, and that's not okay, you know. But it's like, well, and then we see other social justice movements who go out of their way to weaponize shame and make people feel bad about all sorts of things. And that gets a free pass,
Yeah.
you know, for things that people aren't even directly morally culpable for. And so I find this all really, really perplexing, and we don't even have time to unpack all of that. But we're not actually against shame, because there are some movements that weaponize shame 100%. What I'm trying to do is present an invitation after an invitation to consider how porn isn't healthy, how it's harmful, how things could look post-porn. What would it actually look like to form our own desires, relationships, sexual interests, sexual experiences, not hijacked and conditioned by pornography? For me, that is an invitation. And to say you've been preyed on and groomed by an industry that doesn't care about your emotional, mental, physical, sexual, relational well-being. And what would it look like to actually reject that and choose something healthier? And so, yeah, that may make someone feel shame, but are we trying to shame people? No. But yeah, you may sit with some uncomfortable thoughts, but I wouldn't be sitting here doing what I'm doing today if I haven't felt uncomfortable about all sorts of things in my life, and still do. Like, that's growth, that's maturity. And I don't know why we reject it on this issue, but in other ways, especially in more progressive circles, we weaponize shame.